We have heard a lot about gang culture, a lot more about knife and gun crimes. It's happening everywhere, in London and in other parts of the world. Today, I decided to engage a charitable organization working with young people who were once involved in gang culture. This is to understand their work in transforming young people's lives. In this podcast, we will be highlighting the causality of reoccurrence of being a gang member, what has been and what should be done. My name is Rachel Mhango, and I welcome you to the Redemption Podcast. Do stay with us. One of the organizations that is working hard in transforming young people's lives is Johnson B. Harris Victoria Cross Foundation, JBVC. And Sean Blackwood is a caseworker at JBVC Foundation. He was once involved in gang culture, and now he works with JBVC in changing young people's lives. What has changed, and what are the triggers into becoming a gang member?
When I grew up on my estate, the older boys used to look out for us when we were younger. And likewise, we used to look out for the younger boys when they, send them home if there was, things that could get them into trouble and stuff like that, or protect them. Now, the trend is about exploiting the youngsters and stuff and using them, So what's happening at the moment is like an umbrella system. So, for example, a guy who's sort of made a reputation for himself in the community, and he's dangerous, he's well known, he's a bad guy. And what they sometimes do is use that to their advantage. So they'll take other young boys and sort of put them underneath their umbrella. And then what they'll do is keep these boys, as they call them, youngers. And then what that does is give that young person notoriety that he can't be touched by people. And he even starts bringing in other younger people underneath him, which is all good and well until the older person then tells him he needs to go and sell drugs over there, or he needs to go and rob that person there, or he needs to go and stab that person there, or do whatever dirty work he needs to do. The moment that young person decides that this is all too much for me and he doesn't want to, he can either be attacked himself or his umbrella's taken away from him, which is his protection's gone. A lot of the time I've seen young people that have got like more respect and are more disciplined to another young guy or who's there older than even their parents have. Triggers for it now, I think, is developed a lot more due to social media and, a lot of young people being interested in material things, like, they're all in expensive designer clothes, and I think there's a big, fear factor around not being recognized as somebody, not having the latest designer shoes or the latest car or jewelry or watch. That drive isn't through poverty, it isn't through some depression or some neglect. A lot of the time you've got boys that are, grow up in decent homes with mum and dad present and working, and still decide that they want to get themselves involved in crime.
Once you have a criminal record, it is more difficult to get a job, and so you can end up feeling more marginalised. Interesting to note, though, there are a number of organisations, quite a few organisations, ours included, which will actually take people on who have a criminal record and give them that opportunity for a second chance. But people come out of jail believing they may not get a job, or people actually will not give them a job because they're worried about taking them on. They're still back in the community where the status quo really is driven around the power that some of the gangs have. Some of these gangs are running on postcode lines. And so you're part of this family, and your family is your protector. So when you come out of jail and you're feeling alone and you don't think you can get a job and you don't think society's on your side, then it's very easy to go back into the bosom of your family for that comfort and that support. A really interesting road to redemption is not only have they redeemed themselves, but they've now decided to help others redeem themselves. And we see that quite a lot in our caseworkers and our volunteers who are working with the gangs. All of them have some form of criminal record in the past, but have come out of that and are now doing worthwhile things for society.
And that was Rupert Brevery, chairman for JBVC Foundation, speaking back to back with Sean about the causes and reoccurrences of being a gang member. What is the organization doing in reducing such reoccurrences?
Well, we try and start with them, we do start with them pre-release, at least 3 months pre-release. And it's very interesting, some of the stuff that we're doing with them, a lot of people in society would take for granted. Some of it's very basic, simple stuff. How do you open a bank account? How do you get an Oyster card? How do you apply for housing? Stuff that we all take for granted. And that can be very daunting. And that's the sort of stuff that drives you back to the bosom of your family in the gang, because they're going to look after you. There's the emotional and psychological pieces as well. And so we're there to provide them with whatever they may require. And there's also the degree of guidance, because people often tell you what they want, but they don't necessarily understand what they need. And so we're also trying to help with their needs, which may not necessarily always be what their wants are. But their wants are based on a view of the world or a view outside, which may not actually reflect what the world is like outside of jail now that they're being released.
On the other hand, I wanted to understand what young people feel about knife and gun violence. Do they feel like they have a responsibility? I talked to Mimi Tajiri from Peckham.
I feel like my responsibility feels a bit different now. I feel like there's so much for me to do within my own community. I believe that charity starts at home. So if you want to make a change in the world or anywhere, you have to start within yourself firstly, and then within the people around you. It takes literally a community to do all of these things.
There are so many ways one would actually understand gang culture. Others may feel like it's a black-on-black thing, but is that what it is?
There's not that understanding for what the youth are going through, and only when you understand can you really help. So in terms of the government, they can't help because they don't know, and they don't try to know. They just look at it as if, people are just running around and it's black on black crime, when realistically, the only thing they show on news is black on black crime. If you check the statistics, it's crime, period. Do you know what I mean? There's no colour to it.
There is so much evidence that young people are joining gangs, even from the age of 14. Are there any plans for young people that are currently in gang? More explanation from Rupert Brevery.
We have a very broad intent. Our intent is to encourage young people, typically it's young boys, I have to say, or young men, to leave gangs. What we're finding is, and particularly when I talk to Sean about this, the younger ones are difficult to get to, because they think they're the 15, 16, 17-year-olds. They haven't matured. Their thinking processes are not as mature as the older gang members, because they don't have that maybe reflective ability or that ability to say, what are the negative consequences of this? They look at the positive. What we're finding is when the gang members start hitting their 20s and they start picking up responsibilities, like they may be in a relationship or they have children, then it's easier to work with them, because at that point they're realizing what they were doing is not sustainable, and they now have responsibilities. In order for them to fulfill their responsibilities, they need to change their behavior.
We will never see change if we just sit back and watch. I believe that it's high time that we all rise up, join the cause, and fight youth gang and violence. Until next time, my name is Rachel Mhango. Thank you so much for listening.